The voice in the dark. I'm 30 years old, and I share a house with my sister. It's a two-story mother-daughter house, meaning it has two separate living spaces, each with its own kitchen. My sister takes the downstairs unit, and I live upstairs. Most of the time, though, she isn't home. She stays with her boyfriend about 20 miles away, which leaves me alone in the house more often than not. You'd think that, at my age, being alone in my own home wouldn't bother me. But sometimes it does. This happened on one of those nights. It was late, around 11 p.m., and I was curled up on the couch in my living room watching a horror movie. My floor of the house has an open-concept layout, meaning my living room, dining area, and kitchen are all in one big space. The couch is positioned right in the middle, facing the TV, which means my back is exposed to the entire darkened room behind me. For anyone prone to paranoia, it's not the most comforting setup, especially when watching something scary. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little spooked. Every so often, I found myself glancing over my shoulder, as if expecting to see something standing there in the darkness. But nothing was ever there. After the movie ended, I shook off the eerie feeling, brushed my teeth, turned off all the lights, and went to bed. I was asleep for maybe 2 hours before something woke me. At first, I didn't know what it was. I was groggy, my mind still in that hazy space between sleep and wakefulness. But then I heard it. A voice. My sister's voice. It was coming from downstairs. The tone wasn't urgent, but it was clear and familiar. It sounded like she was inside the house, not outside calling for me to open the door. For a few seconds, I just lay there, confused. Had she come home without telling me? Was she arguing with her boyfriend? Still half asleep, I rolled out of bed and stepped into the dark hallway. I switched on the hallway light and made my way toward the living room. Then I heard her again. She was calling my name. Now more alert, I responded, "What is it?" As I started down the stairs. The foyer was dark, and I fumbled for the light switch, but I couldn't find it in my drowsy state. "I'm coming, hold on," I mumbled, making my way down the hallway toward her kitchen. Something about the way the darkness clung to the space unsettled me. The light in her kitchen took a few seconds to warm up, starting dim before gradually brightening. But even in the faint glow I could already see. There was no one there. Not my sister. Not her boyfriend. The apartment was empty. I hesitated, my mind racing for an explanation. Maybe she was in her bedroom? I walked over and checked. Nothing. The bed was made, the room undisturbed. A chill crept up my spine. I called out her name one last time, louder this time. Silence. Then, a sudden, sharp thud from her bedroom. My stomach twisted. I had just checked that room. It was empty, and yet something had fallen. I stood frozen in place for a second, heart hammering. Then, without thinking, I turned and bolted up the stairs like a scared little kid. Once back in my room, I shut the door and locked it. My phone was on the nightstand, and with shaky hands, I dialed my sister's number. No answer. I called again, and again. Still nothing. I sat there, back against the wall, phone clenched in my hands, trying to convince myself that I had imagined the whole thing. Maybe I had been dreaming? Maybe I was just overtired? Eventually, exhaustion won out, and I drifted off to an uneasy sleep. In the morning, I woke up to a text from my sister. "Why did you call me at 1 a.m.? I immediately called her back. "Were you home last night?" I asked. "No," she replied. "I stayed at my boyfriend's." A sick feeling settled in my stomach. After hanging up, I forced myself to go back downstairs to her bedroom. I needed to see what had fallen in the night. But when I got there, I found nothing out of place. There was no object on the floor. Nothing that could have made that noise. I stood there in the silence of the empty apartment, heart pounding, trying to make sense of it all. I want to believe I imagined the entire thing. That I was so groggy I hallucinated my sister's voice, the noise, everything. Because the alternative, the idea that something or someone was down there with me that night, that's a thought I'm not willing to entertain.
The Man on the Deck. Growing up, I was used to being home alone. My mom, a hardworking nurse, often had overnight shifts, and my older brother had left for college, leaving me to manage the house by myself. It wasn't a big deal until this particular night. It was a weekend, and I had invited a girl named Molly over. We had been talking for a while, and she stayed for a few hours. We watched movies, laughed, and had a good time. But since her parents were strict, she had to leave before it got too late. After she left, I went back upstairs to my room, which had a window overlooking our backyard deck. I was lying in bed, watching TV, when I heard it, a scraping noise, like something heavy being dragged. I froze for a second, then sat up, listening closely. It was coming from outside. Slowly, I crept to the window and peeked out. Someone was sitting in one of the deck chairs. My first thought was Molly. Maybe she forgot something and came back? I hesitated before calling out, "Molly!" The person lifted their head. That's when I realized it wasn't her. The figure was a man. His face was shrouded in darkness, but I could tell he was looking right at me. My breath hitched in my throat, and I quickly pulled away from the window, heart pounding. I grabbed my phone and texted a few friends, asking if any of them were playing a prank on me. Those who responded denied being anywhere near my house. But deep down, I already knew this wasn't a joke. After a few minutes, my curiosity got the better of me. I edged toward the window again, peering down. He was still there, still staring. Panic set in. I tried to sound brave and called out, "Who are you? What do you want?" Instead of answering, the man's shoulders began to shake. Took me a moment to realize he was laughing, but there was no sound, just this eerie, wheezing noise, as if he was barely breathing through his amusement. My hands were trembling. "Please, go away." He didn't move. That's when I heard the sound that truly made my blood run cold. The back door handle rattled. He was trying to get in. I bolted from my room and sat at the top of the stairs, listening. The back door creaked as it was pushed. My stomach clenched. Was it locked? Couldn't remember. Then silence. For a moment I thought maybe he had given up. Then, from the front of the house, I heard it again. The doorknob, jiggling. I wanted to scream, but fear kept me frozen. He was trying every door, looking for a way inside. For some reason, I didn't call 911. Maybe it was shock. Maybe I didn't think they'd take me seriously. Instead, I ran back to my room, slammed the window shut, locked it, and curled up in bed, waiting, praying for him to leave. I don't know when I fell asleep, but when I woke up, the sun was streaming through my window. The house was silent. When my mom got home that morning, I told her everything. She was furious. Not at the man, but at me. "Why didn't you call the police?" she scolded. I had no answer. Later that day, I went outside to check the deck. The chair was still there, but it had been turned to face my bedroom window, as if he had spent the entire night watching.